I had been playing for a good amount of time. I fell
Yep.
in love with Overwatch during Goats meta,
Mm-hmm.
ironically,
Yep.
just because the level of complexity of everything um, was really, really interesting to me.
Okay.
And so I got into it, looked into collegiate programs when I was started looking for schools, and joined the collegiate roster.
Cool.
I started out. I was like, I got to really, really try to. So I was like, I need to hit masters before I join the collegiate roster. And then I
Yep.
hit masters, and I joined the collegiate roster, and everyone was like plat gold average. Um, so I was like, oh, okay. So basically, from like day one, I was already being asked to be like, hey, can you help out doing coaching stuff? Hey, can
Yep.
you like look over stuff? And I was like, okay, yeah. Um, and from there, I was like a player coach.
Yep.
And by the time I left, I spent 4 years there. And by the time I left, they were like Masters GM average, doing pretty well. And
Yep.
that was through like scouting, just general improvement of people. Um,
Nice.
and as I was leaving there, because I was still playing at that point, having to juggle between coaching and playing. And I thought to myself that it was taking way too much effort for me to stay mediocre at the game. Um, when I could put just as much effort into coaching and probably be pretty good.
Yep.
So I made that transition last year. Um, just started looking for face it teams, joined a face it team. And I've been working with them trying to get them up and stuff ever since. And it's I've just been I really enjoy the teaching and everything aspect of it, which I didn't really expect when I started.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. So, what are your goals with coaching here? I mean, I have your form pulled up here, and I see what you're talking about a little bit, but I'd like to get a little bit more in depth, especially up to date. What are your current goals?
So my current goals, like short term, I like right now my current team, um, we got one of the first seasons where we were actually getting pretty decent. We got a bit screwed by format,
Yeah.
in the qualifiers for the tier three division, and so we didn't make it into tier three when we were probably better than the average tier three team. So we just spent an entire season of Face It dunking on um, teams and ended up placing second.
Yeah.
But they got into a really bad habit of being lazy in terms of macro and just trying to
Yeah.
out mechanic everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like short term, I think my goal is to try and get them learning fundamentals again, and actually focusing on a lot of the just fundamental stuff so that way we don't have to just rely on people hitting shots all the time.
Yep.
Long term, I want to get to a point where we are finishing top four of the tier three. That way we can play promotion relegation games to get into tier two.
Right, right. Okay, okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. I mean, the thing that you kind of described there is like inevitable if you're basically dunking on preschoolers.
Yeah.
It takes like an unbelievable amount of mental discipline to keep effort up. Um, and it's just kind of unrealistic, right? So,
Mm.
what is your practice schedule like in terms of outside of the Face It games?
So we've got the two matches a week, and then we probably do minimum of three, sometimes more scrims a week.
Yeah,
Um, and the reason we don't do more is just because of people's schedules.
yeah,
We've got people that are working there. Most of them are people that are either in college or just out of high school starting college.
right.
So school is kicking up. People have busy schedules. So
Yeah,
I would love to be scrimming more. It's just it's really hard with
Yeah.
people's works like schedules and everything.
Okay, makes sense. When during the last season, do you felt like you did a decent job of like making the scrims good with the ones that you had, or was it hit or miss?
They were hit or miss, and that was
Okay.
not always because of like it was tough because of opponents,
Yeah.
because it was really rare that we could find people where we could actually be challenged, because there's a
Right.
bit of like that there's a ridiculous amount of ego in tier 3,
Yeah.
um where it, because we were a just recently promoted team, no one wanted to scrim us, so we
Right.
couldn't get scrims against good tier 3 teams to be
Yeah.
challenged.
Yeah.
So most of the time we were playing against teams that were like high advanced, um and kind of just rolling them.
Yeah.
But then there was like maybe one or two scrims every couple weeks, where we would be challenged, and then they would oftentimes hit mental blocks,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, why aren't we winning? Why
Well,
isn't
it's
this easy?
unusual. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. All right. Let's delve right into it. What are you here for? What are we looking at today?
Um, my goal here is to just kind of like pick your brain about stuff,
Yep.
because um I always have come into the mentality of, if you are trying to be good at something, um, you should never be satisfied with your level of knowledge. You should
Yep.
always be looking for more information,
Sure.
more trying to learn from more people. That's why, like, I was watching one of your other coaching the coach kind of videos
Yep.
on your VODs channel,
Sure.
and that's basically what I'm looking for. Is like I've written up some like questions and stuff, just like topics to talk about. Um,
Okay. Okay. We'll start with that. I mean, I kind of have a decent idea of you're just looking. Are you still working with? So is this outside the collegiate scene, or is it just you were
yes,
with the collegiate team? Okay, so you're outside the collegiate scene. Okay, makes sense. And so you just got the experience, the taste of coaching, working with your collegiate team, starting as a player, transitioning to player coach, and then now that you're done with that collegiate team, you're looking to get into coaching, just from the face it ladder, essentially.
yes, yeah,
Got
basically,
it. Okay, just want to make sure I fully understood where we're coming from here. Okay,
yeah.
so
Like
let's yeah, go ahead.
it's just we're on the like Sakura did like they did our roster as like their academy slash tier 3 team.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we've been working with them for about a season now.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. I've that was actually my first official, I guess, first of proper coaching was actually done with a quote unquote academy team, for like a 4.4, 4.5K team. I worked with their high masters low GM team. That was like my first official coaching gig back in the day. So that's cool. Okay, so let's start like with no particular order here. Whatever you want to look at, what you
Yeah.
want to go over. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, like my first thing, so I keep a pretty busy schedule.
Yes.
Um, I work full time.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the school year, I'm still in school, so I'm doing school full time while also working full time, and I'm
Okay.
doing this on top of it. Um, so it basically boils down to, I've got 2 hours a day
Yep.
that is not me working and not me scrimming. Um, so in those kinds of sessions, like I've created like spreadsheets for scouting, for like tracking our internal stats and stuff like that, like win rates, on specific compositions. Like I've kind of gone a bit ham on some of that stuff. Um, but I always feel like I should be doing more, and I can be
Yes.
doing more.
Yes.
And if you only had like 2 hours to prep before like a day to work on stuff, what would you be prioritizing for a team?
quality scrims, networking, communication, prepping, planning, whatever. Number 1. Number 2, I would say either basic macro VOD reviews, and I'm talking really basic, like putting the time and effort to put in a 15-20 minute VOD review that discusses our use of support ults and our playing around those support ults, or our control of off angles, like where we're placing our DPS and where we're placing our supports in different situations, or what compositions we want to experiment with. You see what I'm saying? Like stuff that's basically going to be applicable on every map, every comp that you play on. Like I wouldn't go into this is how we need to be kiting beat. Like that, no. Like I'm talking about legitimately what comps are we playing on what maps, like stuff that's going to be applicable for every map, for every scrim that you guys play. Or finally, high priority individual review, weak point individual review, or high value individual review in the fact that this individual review has a heavy impact on your macro. Let me give you an example. When I worked with London, I spent a lot of time working with Sparker on Soldier because he was like the big daddy off angle in our Ryan Soldier Bap Lucio mate comp, right? And so his ability to know when and where to rotate, how to angle, how deep to angle, whether he should be asking for Lucio help, whether he should be going by himself, that was like unbelievably important for our ability to control map control. And so like he deserved more of our resources, not because he was a weak point, but because a lot of the responsibility of our execution rested on his shoulders.
Gotcha.
So those are the 3 things I'd prioritize in that order. Number 1 would be prioritization of your practice quality. Number 2 is, like I said, the basic, big picture, always applicable macro fundamentals, VOD review preparation. And then number 3, high priority individual review, either addressing weak points that can be applicable or strengthening strong points because they're incredibly important with the composition you're playing. And that's it.
Yeah.
Like so, your situation is like really tough. And you just have to recognize that, and you just have to make whatever that you do high impact as best as you possibly can. And I know it sounds a little weird for me to say this, but I think it's really important that you just cut yourself some slack.
Yeah.
You know, like it's going to be really easy to get motivated and excited and like feel like I can do everything. But the reality is that you physically, mentally, you cannot. Nobody could. I couldn't. Krusty couldn't do it. Nobody could step in your shoes and do what you're doing as effectively as you can.
Yeah.
As effective as you want to be, essentially, right? This is not a skill check for you, right? This is more of this is fun. This is good. Let's see what I can do out of it. And it's incredibly impressive and admirable that you're doing this as well as you are. So cut yourself some slack, be patient, and don't push yourself too much to do everything because you just physically cannot.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because like recently, I started doing a more like structured approach in terms of scrims, where at the start of scrims, I would come into it and I would have a goal of what we were trying to do, what we were trying to achieve. Yeah. For example, for the past couple scrims, my flex support had been forced to opt into taking more duels with the flex DPS that was pressuring them. So like trying to duel the Tracer while on Kiri. And while that was sometimes a positioning mistake from her, it was also a mistake of like, hey, my team is just kind of leaving my flex support out to dry.
Yep.
So I had a heavy emphasis on, hey, so we're going to be playing a lot of Soj, a lot of Kiri Lucio, and we're going to be focusing on doing map flips when we do engages. When we are getting hard pressured, my Soj slides, flips the map, my Kiri TP's over, and we are actually peeling for my support and listening to them. And then trying to cut out a lot of the fluff of what we're talking about in scrims as well, because I felt like we were just talking about
stuff that would be, by the way. That one that you just noticed, that's an always applicable one. Yeah.
They would often talk about a lot of stuff that would be much more productive to talk about in like a VOD review setting. So I basically was going into it and I was like, all right, so I've got all of the maps written out that I want to play, the comps we want to play on them, and what we're working on. And during scrims, during this 2-hour block, I'm gonna make the rules. This is my time, and we're going to be trying to work on this stuff, and then directly after scrims, we'll probably take 30 minutes to an hour, and I let all of the players just talk about stuff. We'll pull up a map or something. We'll talk about it. We'll go over something. Like I know yesterday we pulled up a map right after scrims, and I was pointing out stuff. My Ram was just pressing W, not realizing that hey, there's a tracer on his Kiri, literally the entire time, and he just dies. So like, stuff like that. And even that level of prep, it feels really simple, but that might be part of your like just cutting some slack and like
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, okay, this is like the best thing that you can do in Overwatch as a coach is to make sure that we're not forgetting the simple things. Because I think if you watch a lot of like really high level Overwatch, there's a lot of like really complicated things happening. But oftentimes, like the teams that perform the best are the teams that are doing the little things, or like let's put it this way, the not really complicated things well. That's the best way to describe it. So when we talk about like maintaining map control, having a fundamental fight plan, ult tracking effectively, communicating the important stuff and not slobbering around, having a decent swap plan, not anything complicated, just knowing, okay, this is what we're playing, this is what we swap and things go poorly. That's like 95% of like macro at the high level.
mm-hmm.
Sure, there's knowing like, okay, this ult's good versus that ult, knowing this fight plan is better versus that fight plan. But like that stuff just doesn't matter as much as the fundamentals. So when you're talking about like removing fight clutter, focusing on like, are we aware of what's going on with our backline? Do we actually have a plan? If you've ever watched any of my like team VOD reviews, right? Like the public ones.
Yeah.
If you watch the gold ones or the plat ones, right? And then you watch the grandmaster ones, there's not a lot of difference.
Yeah.
You know, because the reality is that a lot of these guys aren't professional scrim players. Like I'm not saying that pro players are bad at this necessarily. I think pro players are way better at like fight planning overall. But the funny thing is the gap between like a plat player who scrims and a grandmaster player who scrims is mostly due to the skill of the character, not due to the macro of like how to fight plan and how to communicate or how to be a team player, I guess. So it's like it's up to you to kind of introduce those concepts no matter what kind of a rank that you're working with. And if you're thinking, oh, this is just too simple, that's your artistic side getting in the way of good coaching.
Gotcha. Okay.
You need to let the artsy fartsy stuff go most of the time. Trust me, I'm the angle guy, right? Like I love strategy and stuff like that, and that stuff definitely matters. But a lot of times the answer to why something doesn't work is incredibly simple. Incredibly simple.
Yeah.
It just comes down to execution.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger things that like I try to emphasize with my players is there's always like the starting mistake is what we need to fix because hey, my Kiriko's dying early. Okay, why is my Kiriko dying early? Oh, it's because the tracer showed up. Why did the tracer show up? Oh, it's because my tracer was not in the right lane, marking that area of space. Mm-hmm. And so it's not, hey, my Kiriko needs to not die. It's my tracer needs to be marking the correct area of space.
Yeah. Sure. Root cause analysis.
Yeah. So my next thing was a lot of like I was saying before, a lot of the people I'm working with are really young, coming straight out of high school, starting college, and it is off. Like we spent almost the entirety of last season just learning how to communicate, and it's even become some form of struggle just talking even outside of scrims, where they're interrupting people. It's difficult to get people to just make their point without interjecting because a lot of these kids have just been online the entire time. Most of them even doing like online schooling and stuff like that. So would you have any advice on just like helping them learn more just like basic communication stuff, not even just in-game comm structure, but like just as people.
So, in relation to Overwatch or relation to non-Overwatch, I would say it's going to be all down to your ability to kind of lead it by example. So, like,
Mhm.
kind of your ability to kind of communicate and interject and let people finish their thoughts effectively. But more importantly, for Overwatch, you're going to need to set some rules and you're going to need to set some structure for how that's done. So, without here, let me give you an example. How does your communication structure work right now? Like when you're talking about these out of Overwatch discussions,
Mhm.
is it the post map recap stuff that you're just kind of spitballing around? Like, is that what we're talking about right now?
Yeah, most of the time.
Okay. Then it needs to be a set structure of you're leading the conversation. Always. You're moderating the conversation. If the unstructured discussion starts to get kind of chaotic, I would start off with like, okay, what do we think about this? And who wants to talk first? And then you let somebody say something, then somebody else says something, and you say, well, hey, like so and so, you go first. Like let's let you finish your thought first. Just let you say what you need to say. Keep it concise. Just let them finish their thought to conclusion, and then people can interject. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you are going to need to moderate that discussion. Absolutely. If they can't handle an unmoderated Overwatch strategy related discussion, then they should
Mhm.
not be allowed to have that until they've earned the right to have that unmoderated discussion, if that makes sense. And so
Yeah,
you
for sure.
need to kind of manage that as you will. Now, obviously, be kind and respectful, and don't like snap at
Yeah.
them or server mute them unless they need it, you know. But like, I would encourage you to just very firmly be like, hey, let's shut up for a second. Like, so and so needs to finish their point. I've worked with a lot of teams like that, same kind of circumstances you said, and essentially what ends up happening is once you establish that standard, like this is how we do things, and if you don't fit, you're just going to have to shut up. Then people figure it out pretty quick. People figure it
Yeah.
out pretty quick, and then they start to self-moderate, and then you don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, you need to not let people yell and shout over each other, or being like really insulting, right? Like let's say somebody has a different opinion, and somebody just like snaps at them and be like, "Yo, hey, like that, we don't do that," you know.
Yeah, for sure.
You do need to moderate that. If you guys can't
Yeah.
talk to each other, you guys can't play.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I definitely have tried to I am very hey, we should not be actually arguing with each other in almost any context, especially like in match, in scrims, in between. Like, if we are going to have a conversation, we need to at least be civil about it. Um, and that, like, from day one, that's been one of my biggest things, because I've experienced some ugly things from collegiate that I do not want replicated.
Right, right, right.
um, one of the other things about like communication as well is I've got one specific player that has a really hard time with overthinking and overcomplicating things.
Yep.
Um, and they have like hit scan player, incredible mechanics, but is not only just overthinking about the game, overthinking about themselves, about the social situation that they're in, just everything in general. And I feel like I've tried a lot of things trying to help him out, talk with him individually. Um, what would you recommend for people that are just overthinking, thinking that, hey, the easy answer is not correct, it has to be something complicated?
I mean, you just need to keep up doing exactly what you're doing right now. When players have a tendencies, like I'm not going to get all like Freud on you, but if a player has a
Mhm.
tendency like that, it's probably a really big, important reason of why that's the case. And it's not going to be a bias that you're going to be able to uninstall. All it
Gotcha.
is it's simply flavor and nuance to your team environment that is very helpful, but
Mhm.
something that needs to be moderated, and probably something that can improve with time and with maturity. Something that you can enable with the things that you're talking about through examples. For example, the VOD reviews. You know, this player's overthinking a situation, comes up in VOD review, you talk it through, you provide proof to the contrary, provides maybe a bit more context, maybe kind of digs at that bias that they have, right? These one-on-one conversations. There is no fixing. So whenever you have these individual player foibles, and it is represented in a manner that isn't actively antagonistic or disruptive. Case in point, this person isn't interrupting, yelling, calling people trash. Like that's the kind of stuff that we talked about earlier that you need to step in immediately and deal with, right? But it's just like foibles that just like maybe they go on too long or they change the subject, or maybe it's the opposite, right? So just the opposite, right? Somebody says like, oh, we just need to go faster, guys. We just need to go faster. We just need to set faster tempo, right? That kind of player, it just needs to be dealt with individually and just patiently, because you're not going to be able to fix. You can't quote unquote fix that. You can't fix that. I've worked with all types. I've worked with players that underthought, that overthought, that oversimplified, that brought their own strategic bias. I mean, heck, I have my own strategic bias myself, but your job as a coach is to help moderate that. But also at the same time, don't look at that as necessarily as a problem that you need to squash. It's more like an extreme stance that needs to be moderated with a bit of wisdom. So for you, it's like this player, would you say this player sometimes has some really in-depth or helpful thoughts or ideas? Or not so much.
A lot of the time, their general idea of what is going on is almost always correct, but they will get so far into the details that they become wrong.
Right. I see what you're saying. Okay. So that right there is exactly what I'm talking about, because that player brings value through having correct ideas, which probably is not something that you could say for all of your team players, right? They probably don't always have good ideas. So that's great. Good here. Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. But you just identify the problem. It's like they get too in depth and then they end up missing the forest for the trees. That needs to be something that you consistently hammer at, work at, showcase examples, and have them practice that. But I don't think this is a problem that you can just snap your fingers and fix. It sounds like you're already doing the right things. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't worry about
it. What would you say is like best way to learn more about the game? Like specifically focusing around like breaking down matchups, changing play styles for like specific situations, just like general stuff like that. And what do you think would be like the best way to go about not only learning about that, but teaching it as well?
Yep. So the best way to teach it is just to practice teaching it. You know, obviously that's an easy answer, but the most important thing is the way how to practice learning it is to go into a replay review. If you can get access to the replay viewer, great for OWCS. If not, or even just high-level replay codes. Like let's say you have a high-level scrim code that you're able to get access to. Or you want to look at, like let's say, worst-case scenario, OBS Sojourn POVs, right? Worst-case scenario, OWCS YouTube freaking VODs, like the rest of us peasants, right? Whatever you have access to higher-level play, like the highest-level play, okay? Pause before the fight starts and tell me exactly what's going to happen. So you're coaching, quote unquote, coaching Team Red here. They have support ult disadvantage into Team Blue. It's bot reset, Coliseo. Team Red has a 10-meter advantage on Team Blue, and they're fighting on main. They just got good respawn. It's a mirror matchup. What does Team Red do without support ults? You understand what I'm saying? And so what you do is you sit there and you predict, okay, what angles are they controlling? Where are the DPS going? How are they playing? Are they opening with ult? And you just predict everything that has pertinence to you. The really three easy things are where are people positioned in terms of like where's their map control? What ultimates do they use at all? And then the third thing is just much, much more micro, but like if there are any super relevant CDs that you want to look at, like let's say how are they using Vortex, how are they using Amp, how are they using Suzu, whatever, that's like the third thing you look at. But that's it. That's it right there. And try to predict what happens. Now here's the really spicy part. When they do those things, if you're wrong or if you're right or whatever, or let's say if you're wrong, okay? Do you think they made a mistake? Do you think you're right and they just screwed up? Or do you think that, or try and assume that they made the right play and think about it and go, okay, this, and then try to back-explain, you know, try to hindsight coach why they would do it the way that they did it. But also ask yourself, was it a mistake? Was your plan idea, or was your plan or idea or way to use the CD or take map control better? And then you keep going. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah, that's I feel like I definitely have done that. I feel like I do that just watching OWCS normally. Is
Yep.
like just take a look at the alt icon and be like, oh, okay, so they're probably just going to use this, and this
Yeah.
um, in here, and they're probably just going to go. And then obviously, it's not like if I'm not doing it in a review setting, it's more so just it's more hit or miss. But
Right.
I feel like I do that more just instinctually while watching.
Right.
Um,
Right. 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 Well,
um,
the thing that you have to remember is that whenever you're watching OWCS, you don't just want to be watching OWCS. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least, okay, let's put it this way. If you're watching for the purpose of improvement, it's like just watching a Twitch streamer, right? You're not really getting better watching a Grandmaster Genji player. Otherwise, Necros would have spawned a lot of, Diamond Genji players, not Gold Genji players, right? So
yeah.
the concept is more along the lines of, when you're actively looking to develop your macro, you need to stop what you're doing, put your full attention, and then try to engage your brain before the fight starts. Because the way the game happens, it happens way too fast for you to learn anything. So really what you need to do is you need to stop, like I said, and just force yourself to think about what should happen. And I generally think that you'll probably find more success looking at it from just one team's perspective, just to simplify things. But you can pivot around to different maps, different comps, different situations. And honestly, it's good. I would obviously prioritize the comps that you guys play. But honestly, if you really want to develop your macro, you should be doing it in comps that you guys don't play, because really the fundamentals are oftentimes the same.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So next thing I had was when things start to go wrong, like I was saying before, a lot of them start dropping into solo plays. I've got to win this. I have to do XYZ in order to win the fight. And it starts to devolve into a glorified deathmatch.
Yeah.
And I've tried doing tried to instill the more Korean mentality of like, hey, everything is winnable. There's always a win condition. Find the win condition and try to work around it and actually achieve that win condition. Because even if you have the biggest disadvantage in the world, by playing for that win condition, maybe you force out extra things. Hey, maybe you even win the fight because the other team doesn't want to overinvest stuff to win it. But they seem to struggle a lot mentally with team play when facing adversity, and I have tried to come up with ways of like trying to really emphasize team play in practice, but I also find it kind of difficult to find specific things that they could work on. Like, is there any kind of like drill or anything that could be exercises run in practices to specifically work on team play?
I mean, no, because you really have to narrow down what you mean by team play. When you described it here, you described it as when things go negative, we start to individually go off on our own things. But then I guess to delve deeper into that, are you talking about, are these plans communicated and not followed up? Are they not communicated at all? Are they the wrong play for the situation? In other words, like, they are communicated, they are followed up, but it's just a stupid individual idea that doesn't make any sense in the context, right? Like, you've kind of identified three different issues: either not listening, not communicating, or being stupid, right? So what's the team play problem here? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so once you identify that, then to fix the issue, the general rule is twofold: slap them on the wrist, make them look a little silly when they do these things during VOD review, probably the best, showcasing how poor this looks and why it doesn't work. But the other one that's even more important that I think a lot of coaches fail on is catch them at the act of doing it correctly. So in other words, contrast that with, wow, look at this situation, look at how well we played it, and look at the result. You understand what I'm saying? So you need to narrow down what aspect they're screwing up, and then you need to catch them doing it correctly in review, and then catch them like flubbing it up in review, and contrast the two. So they know what not to do, but they know what to do. And then crucially, they also have the confidence that, hey, look, we already have done it, we can do it again.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I always try to mix in, even like in scrims, being like if I'm hammering on even like a specific player trying to get a specific concept across, as soon as as maybe they have like two or three maps in a row where they're just not getting it, and then on that fourth map, it clicks and they start doing it really well. I always try to emphasize that again,
Yep.
be like, hey, that looked a lot better. That was
Yeah.
something that like giving them the information on
Sure.
how that they are doing well, that this is an improvement to keep
Yes.
doing this thing.
Well, it's motivating,
Um
right? It's motivating to feel called
yeah,
out positively, and it's also motivating to feel like what you're doing actually is working.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Um
I think that, but obviously, like that all comes from the base point of like you need to be more specific with what you're trying to improve on in team play.
gotcha. And that comes with like probably like the scrim planning and stuff like that, like trying to come up with the goals, the maps, comp stuff that we're playing on.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, it might also be that, like, again, I just want to, like, when you're talking about these particular examples, like, I want you to stop, like, right now. When you say our team play kind of devolves and people start doing off their own thing, can you think of one example right after that? Like, give me the team fight. What happened in recent memory?
yeah. Um Suravasa, we were playing our default comp, which is like Ram, Soj Genji, Kiri Lucio.
Yeah.
And this was on current patch, so
Yeah.
it's not like that's an
Sure.
impossible matchup to win. In
Sure.
fact, I would argue that the Ram is probably favored in that matchup
Okay.
than where Mog is at right now. Especially with the armor bug.
Yeah. Okay.
And they were getting to a point where I was like, hey, here's the win condition, like before, because they had just played a map of playing against it and struggling against it. So in between, I was like, hey, one of the best things, the win condition against the Maga comp is making sure that they can't stage, poking them out,
Right.
making sure that they're taking damage, that they can't engage at full HP.
Right.
But the other team was doing really well, like de-peaking and playing around corners so that we couldn't just look at them directly in the face and shoot them. And when that stopped working, they switched to a like counter Maga comp that we had come up with a while back. That we hadn't practiced, but was something that we knew would work. And rather than play around the win conditions of that comp, we decided, hey, like my diva would just go in and just start shooting backline, and wasn't pressuring out the Maga at all. My DPS were going around trying to take duels, trying to take one-on-ones, and it left my backline kind of out to dry. Like they couldn't really do anything because everyone was kind of doing their own thing. And we, like, even though my tank might communicate, hey, I'm just going to go on backline here because I want to try to get kills. And that kind of comes into of like, hey, that's just a bad plan. That's not what we need to be doing. But then there was also times where, even though he said, hey, I'm going to go look at backline, we would not even have full follow-up from everyone. Everyone was still trying to do their own thing rather than follow up on the bad call. Because my thing has always been, even if it's a bad call, if you follow up on it, it can make it a good call.
Right.
Because if everyone's looking at the same thing, it has a higher likelihood of working.
Yeah.
And even a bad plan where everyone's following up is better than a good plan where no one's doing the same thing.
Right. So, I mean, you've kind of, I mean, there's a couple of things here. Like, the big one is that you just don't have practice on this anti-Mago comp, so nobody knew what they were doing. Like, you picked the right characters, but you didn't have. So, the problem is either, I mean, you swap to the composition instead of sticking with the practice if that's what you wanted them to do, or you guys didn't know how to play the Mago comp or the anti-Mago comp.
Yeah, it was more so of them swapping. It was not I hadn't told them to swap it. It was more so they were like, I don't know what to do. This thing worked in the past. We had done it before. Let's
Yeah.
play it and try it.
Right. Well, so there's your root cause, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they lost faith in the original composition, and then they swapped to a composition that on paper would work easier, but they didn't know how to execute on it.
Mhm.
So this is where you as a coach need to decide when we're looking at addressing this issue, do we want to fix the anti-malga comp execution, or do we need to work on having more faith in what we're practicing? And to be honest with you, that's probably just a conversation you need to have with the team.
Yeah.
If you jump in there and you start talking about like, well, if we're going to be doing this with our diva, then we need to make sure we're going backline, or like we need to make sure that we're like playing as a team more. It's vague niceties. It doesn't mean anything, right? Like you got to go, why did this happen, right? Let's address the root issue and then let's go from there, and that's really your call. But I encourage you, whatever you're doing, to be specific and direct with whatever your goal is.
Gotcha.
Because if that exact same situation had happened and it had been people are tilted from the way that the scrimmage is going and then start to kind of go and do their own thing and not communicating with each other, that's kind of honestly where I thought you were going with it, but that's clearly wasn't really the issue here exactly. You see what I'm saying? So like the end result was still the same of just kind of chaotic individual play, but the reason that we got to that point was completely different, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Don't be a modern day, pharmacist that's just going to prescribe you a freaking antacid just because you have a little bit of heartburn without knowing anything about you or your diet or your lifestyle, right? Like, yeah, that'll deal with a symptom maybe, but honestly, like, what's the root issue here? You need to deal with the root issue here. A cough doesn't mean that you have necessarily the Black Plague, It might just mean that you have a cold. But whatever the cause, we got to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that I definitely could do better on, is just like taking a bit of my own advice and just trying to find like the root cause.
You did it right there, right? You did it right there, no problem. Like at least the way I interpreted it, is definitely felt like either they didn't know how to play the see, that's the best part too, is you don't have to make that decision necessarily. You can just be upfront with them, like, hey guys, even in the middle of the scrim, we are looking really lost on this anti-malga comp. So we can either stick with it and we can start to try to talk about ways that we can execute it better this scrim, or we need to go back and trust our gut instinct with the RAM execution. But I'm not going to let us practice like that. So you're allowed to play whatever you guys want, but we have to keep our team play fundamentals better here, right? So like basically you let them make the decision. But whatever it is, the standard is held of like, okay, if we're going to play this gimmick comp, then we have to be doing this so-and-so communication thing, right? Otherwise, there's no point.
Gotcha, for sure. My next question is more so like confirmation of if what we're trying to do is good. Sure. Where like we've started to transition to more player-led VOD reviews, like consistently, and then coach-led ones when like me or my assistant coach have done prep and have like specific topics to go over. Like, hey, we're just gonna like my most recent one was we broke down how to play the diva comp when we weren't playing sim. Like, are we playing the diva comp with like a tracer, a Soj? How do we play this? Because they just couldn't really figure it out. And like my assistant coach will go over things and be like, okay, what do we mean by, like, when we say take an angle or take a lane, what are we meaning by that? What are the situations where we need to be doing that? And then the player-led ones are more like after scrims, where I will kind of let them take the lead and talk over it and be like that kind of, like you said, moderator, where I'm not necessarily controlling what's going on, more so just making sure that the conversation is productive.
Yes.
With what we're doing most of the time.
Yes. Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good. The only exception I would make sure is to make sure that you're very lenient and flexible with that structure. If somebody comes up to you or you think that they're competent enough or has interest in doing a more structured VOD review on the execution of any topic, give them the reins.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah,
anybody
for sure.
displays any sort of interest of like, let's say the anti-Malga comp, like let's say somebody goes to you, coach, this sucked. Our execution was, I think I know what was wrong. You talk with them, let them start the conversation next day. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. And my last real thing was more so about just like general competitive mindset. Um, there are, like I was saying before, I want to try and push like the Korean mentality of there's always a win condition. We need to locate it and play for it.
Yep.
But there are times where even like not even in lobby where people struggle with motivation. Like you've got some people that are playing ranked every day. They're grinding. They're doing all this, and then you've got some people that just show up for scrims, maybe play ranked 1 or 2 times a day, and then they're done.
Yeah.
And I've tried different things where it's like, okay, I need everyone to play ranked, and I did a thing where I would track how many ranked games everyone played, and the person that played the most ranked games got a reward.
Yeah.
That didn't really work long term. So then I was like, okay, we're gonna play ranked, and whoever doesn't play ranked, has to run a lap where I would have them just run up and I would play in game. I'd have them go up and down Circuit Royale like a couple times.
That's crazy.
And that worked for a little bit, but then it was like it's hard to be like, hey, no, you have to sit here and you have to play and you have to when it's like, no, I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, I mean
okay.
Your mileage may vary with that one. I don't know if I'd recommend that one. The best punishment that you can possibly construe or possibly come up with is you don't play.
Yeah.
So basically, here's the way it's going to work. When you're working with like organized player paid teams, okay, your power is difficult to earn, right? So basically, all of your decisions need to kind of be done with the support of the players that you're working with, which, you can earn trust and respect over time. But that's the reality, okay? I've been in your situation before. It doesn't matter how long you work. You can't just pull bench players out of nowhere. So here's what you do. Players aren't playing ranked. They're not grinding. They're not putting necessarily the effort in outside of the game. What's their scrimmage performance looking like? Right?
Yeah.
If their scrimmage performance is leveling up, keep encouraging them, but fine. If you do, some players just don't need to train as much. Maybe they put a lot of effort in scrims. Maybe they just learn faster. Doesn't matter. Money talks. You get what I'm saying? And their teammates are not going to care until it starts impacting their scrimmage results or their match results. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, when you have a player whose scrimmage results are not great and his ranked results aren't great, you're not going to have to be the bad guy, because your players are going to have your back, because they're not going to be happy with it either. And that's when you start benching people in trialing positions. You give them some slack, and it doesn't even have to be I wouldn't just frame it as a punishment. I would frame it as, we have different goals. Because the reality is that if you have a team with players that have different levels of motivation and different levels of effort, that team is doomed to fail eventually. It happens with most teams. That's why most teams don't stick together, because some people are on the rise, some people are on the fall. And that's just the way it goes. And I've worked with basically every level of that struggle, literally all the way up to the Overwatch League. I've worked with Overwatch League players that did not want to be there, right? And so you don't make it an emotional thing. It's just a simple observation, and we've not earned, and then that's it. That's basically all it is to it.
Yeah, I have been fortunate enough to be able to, I whenever we would do trials for new spots, I'm often very picky, and thankfully I have a manager that works her freaking ass off.
Nice. Love to hear that.
And she's got I swear to God, she manages half of tier 3. As well as doing the Twisted Minds all female roster. So she's all over the place, and gets me a ton of people. So I've got a bunch of choices, and I have been able to curate people that, at least when they started, all had that level of drive and that mentality of, hey,
Yeah.
I always want, like, I want to be improving. So been able to keep the core 4 or 5 people for almost a year at this point.
Good.
So
That's awesome.
it's, yeah.
That's a long
So
time.
we've been, well, yeah, especially when like we just look around and it's like, oh my gosh, everyone is exploding right now, and like halfway through the season, you see like 50% of the teams run into some kind of problem. But I've like, that's been my end conclusion is just, well, I'm gonna bench them, and if they don't care, then that's even more reason to bench them.
Yeah.
Um,
John Wooden, I don't know if you're familiar with that name. John Wooden would even put it to the point to where practice was a privilege. Where I mean, you have to use this one carefully, but this is definitely something that I wish I'd come across sooner in my coaching career, because I definitely would have used it, which was, if the effort isn't there in scrim's done. Just call the scrim. Kind of not exactly perfectly related with what you're going with, but just if you're 2 or 3 maps in and they're not putting the effort in, just call GG's and end it right there. And that will get people's attention real fast. And you're like, oh, I don't want to like lose a scrim block. Yeah, well, it might as well, because at some point, like, the effort has to be there. And I guess that's kind of like the general spirit of what I'm aiming for. Is it's not kind of like like I said, it's not an emotion driven decision. There's no anger, there's no frustration necessarily. It's, this is our expectations for what we're going to be doing. And if you don't measure up to those expectations, we're not angry, we're not bitter. We just have different expectations, and so we're going to call it right there, right? And so that's when you're doing with roster confirmation. That's just how it is. You put the effort in, you don't. That's it. You get what you put in, and there's no politics, there's no nothing.
Yeah, I've definitely had blocks where it was like we got maybe 2 or 3 maps in, and I was like, man, everyone is just exhausted. No one is really putting in the effort, and it just turns into like pulling teeth just to get through all of the maps.
It's an actively negative thing at that point too.
Yeah,
no matter what the cause is, whether it's fatigue, tilt, laziness, whatever, it's an actively negative thing. You don't want to be practicing while you're tired, really. So but yeah, and in terms of roster construction, I mean, if they're not playing the game but they're still performing, then you're cooking. It's fine. But if they are not performing in scrims or out of scrims, then you need to start considering replacements right away, and you're going to have your team's backing for it.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
makes your job easier.
Yeah. To like end it off, is there any wisdom that you would impart that I've not asked about, that you feel like that is really important for any aspiring coach trying to make it? Like,
okay, so let's cut straight to the chase here, right? You described your scrimmage situation as kind of hit or miss in terms of the quality of the scrims, number one priority. Right? No, live, laugh, love, no leadership quotes and italics. It's just get good scrims. Do whatever you do until you get good scrims. Buy other managers cars, blackmail coaches. I don't care what you have to do. Get good scrims. And once you get a good scrim, book them once a week, once every 2 weeks for the next year. Hold on to the scrim, because the reality is that, like, it doesn't matter how good you are at coaching or how good you are at VOD reviewing. If the practice isn't like of a good challenge level, then it's basically impossible to improve. I would literally rather have good scrim. Let me put it this way: you could have a really well coached team that has like really kind of crappy or inconsistent quality scrims versus a team that literally doesn't have a coach but scrims at a high level. The latter team will always win. Always do better.
Yeah,
you're not that important, right? I'd rather have a roster with slightly worse players that has a good scrim schedule. I've seen it. It is not an accident that you get good scrims, you get good. That's just how it goes. And by good scrims, I mean scrims of an equivalent quality to where you guys you want to be willing to experiment and lose scrims, right? But like it's generally better to lean on the sides of every scrim is feeling a little bit try hard or a little bit sweaty. That's always good. I mean, freaking Twisted Minds, speaking of Twisted Minds, right? Like they're really famous this past like 6 months of like not even really being very good at experimenting, like playing it way too safe strategically in scrims. But apparently like every scrim they do is like a freaking ranked, like not ranked, it's like a tournament. They're sweaty every scrim. So it definitely is not great from like a strategic and experimentation phase, but those guys get freaking amazing because every scrimmage is full try hard, full effort. Right. And that's like by far the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's number one. There's my wisdom is get good scrims, do whatever you have to do to get good scrims. Beyond that, I would, okay, this is going to sound really corny. Okay. Devote time. If you want to talk about the biggest bang for your buck besides scrims quality, okay, it's to think, contemplate, evaluate. Make sure that you're getting time every week. I would literally cut down on your VOD review hours if you have to, just to make sure that you're giving yourself some quiet time to walk, think, shower, whatever, think through. Basically, all of my best coaching quality has been when I have been able to really kind of plan, think, preps, think about player mentality. This player's being a problem. They've been really frustrating. I don't know how to approach this strategy. We're losing a bunch of scrims. I don't know what to do. When I've been given opportunities to contemplate, I generally make better decisions with everything I do. When I don't have time and I just have to go, review, the quality of what I'm doing always diminishes. So when in doubt, lean on the side of doing nothing, but thinking maybe. And making sure that whatever you do has higher quality. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like you only have so much energy, so much effort, and you're really pushing that right now. So it's really important that you're able to know your limits. And sadly, to know your limits, you actually have to stop. Like the reality is that you won't know how bad you're doing until you stop and contemplate, okay? So you need some time to kind of contemplate and process things and think about what should be the best course of action. And you need some space and some time to do that. And honestly, that's one of the harder things that you're going to do because it's so incredibly easy to just kind of put more time in and then feel good about it.
Yeah.
So make sure your hours are quality, which probably is going to mean doing a little bit less than what you're doing right now and doing a little bit more thinking, if anything. Make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Final thing I'll say in terms of, like, let's say we'll go into the different categories. So we talked about mentality. We talked about basic scrims. We'll talk a little bit about macro here, okay? When it comes to macro, depending on how much time that you spend with a composition, the best way to coach a composition is to simplify it into 2 steps and only 2 steps. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you're playing Winston, Sojourn, Tracer, Curie, Lucio. Okay. How do you play that composition? If I'm coaching a plat team, if I'm coaching a top 500 champion team, when we're learning that composition, we're going to do 2 things. Everybody is pressuring off of, like we're communicating our Winston bubble timings, always, no exceptions. And number 2, we always have a +1 on either our Sojourn or Tracer angle. Whether that's Curie with Sojourn, Curie with Tracer, Lucio with Sojourn, Lucio with Tracer, it doesn't matter. But we always have a support taking some space. We have an angle plus timing our Winston bubble timings. And what we do is when we're learning the composition, obviously there's more nuance than that. You and I both know that. But when we're learning the comp, we'd only focus on, are we taking an angle and are we synchronizing our pressure? That's it. That's all. We're doing Ram Brawl. Okay. What's our ultimate layering looking like so that we're putting more emphasis on fight planning, right? So that we're never beat engaging into a beat annihilation kitsune. You get what I'm saying? We always know, okay, we're down our ult layers, so we should play to kite or we should play to respond with ults or we should ult and then they ult and then we ult, right? So we're paying a lot of attention with ult layering, number 1. And then number 2, that you're going to notice a pattern here. What's our off angle and who's taking that off angle? Are we opening with Soj? Are we doing Cass? Are we doing Lucio? Are we doing Tracer? Like where's our off angle and where's that off angle going to be playing? And we're always communicating where that off angle is being taken. If we're going Circuit Royale, for whatever reason, Sigma's back. We're doing double sniper, right? We're synchronizing our shield pushes always, and we always know what our first ult is. First ult, what is it? First ult, what is it? When you're playing into double snipers, layering is a lot less common. I mean, it's still important, but it's a lot less important because oftentimes the whole push-pull dynamic when you're running sniper comps, it doesn't really happen, right? So you just kind of, and then there's a lot of chaos. Oftentimes first or second ult just results in kills because of how much damage there is. So there's not a lot of like these big ult traits, right? So, but you always know BAP window, flux, Infrasights, Dragon, fill in the blank, right? Like what is going to be that one trigger and where are we pulling that trigger, right? So I guess that's just a good general rules. Like whenever you're learning compositions or even going back and revisiting compositions, don't have these like long VOD reviews. Instead, pull out a basic fundamental, demonstrate the fundamental, and have them go train that fundamental until they can earn the right to discover more nuance.
I don't think I've ever gone through and been like, okay, here are the 2 steps, but I have tried to like, okay, what's the core idea of what we're trying to do?
Sure.
I'm going to use
I'm
the
just
diva,
saying 2 arbitrarily, right? It could be 1, it could be 3. I would just keep it really brief. Is basically my point.
Yeah. I think I maybe took 30 or 45 minutes where I went through and like the diva compo one, like for example, where I spent maybe 10, 15 minutes going over specifically, okay, what are we doing as the diva? And a lot of it was, okay, my diva and my tracer are trying to push back the backline and then turning around, denying healing, and basically sweeping the tank.
Right.
And then after that, I would pull up pro VODs and be like, okay, here's an example of them actually doing it.
Sure.
And here's its application in like 3 different situations.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's fine. Like it's a simple principle. Basically the reason why that's so important is because that scales accordingly. So the funny thing is as you get better at the composition and you start introducing more nuance, the nuance is just also simple concepts applied to the simple concepts. Let me give you an example. Where's our +1 Curie Lucio tracer? What angle are we taking? What you would do is you would say, okay, in fights where we want speed and disengage, our Lucio plays main. In fights that we don't want speed disengage, Lucio can take angle. Right? Or if we have Kitsune from main better with Ramatra, so we're going to have a Kiriko on main in situations like that, but others like, and so what you're doing is as you're introducing nuance, you're still making it bite-sized. You're not going, okay, we've learned the 2 steps, now here's a 7-step step to success. No, like you need to keep it bite-sized and introduce those concepts, and you need to introduce those concepts on a system of priority and ease of access, right? So like making sure that you're choosing your battles and not getting obsessed over stuff that's not too important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you understand kind of what you should be doing and just do it, keep doing what you do, and that is all.
Yeah. One of the bigger things that I've tried more recently was focusing on like just general ult economy.
Yeah.
And like how we're using ults. So I went through I think it was the North America Grand Finals before the World Cup.
Okay.
And I tracked which team ulted first.
Okay.
And then how many ults did each team use? Did they win that fight? And then what was their win rate for the next 2 fights? And I broke it down. I did every single map, all of the fights, regardless of composition. And I found that Flashpoint, the team that ulted first, had like a 70% win rate.
Yeah.
And they had they also had a higher win rate for the next fight, but the lowest win rate across all of the maps for their 3rd fight. And every single map had a really, really high win rate on who ulted first, except for Escort and Hybrid.
Okay.
Where it was attack versus defense, where and I also broke it down like, was the team attacking, was the team defending?
Yep.
And the attacking team always had a higher win rate when they ulted first, but defense always had a lower win rate when they ulted first than when they ulted second.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's because because you're matching rather
Right.
than
It's map control, right? Because if you're an attack, you must ult first to overcome the map control disadvantage. Otherwise, you're stuck in a choke.
Yeah.
It's doomsday. If you're defending, if you're opening with an ultimate and setting tempo, it often implies that either you're down ults, so you're trying to set tempo and catch them by surprise, which means you're probably going to lose the fight anyway, or it means that you're getting too gun shy and you just need to wait for them to walk into your space because you have all the angles.
You're giving up your advantage.
But yeah,
versus...
that's a great example right there of like a one simple concept of like, okay, we've established our Winston, Sojourn, Kiriko, Lucio, Tracer fundamentals, how to play the comp. Now let's start talking about some basic macro of ult trades. And now you could bring that as a very basic discussion of like, let's practice when we're attacking. Let's try to make sure that we're opening with ults and we have a good ult plan, and we're defending, we're trying to respond with ults. That could be something you could practice, absolutely. But just keep it simple.
Yeah. Because I think where I drew that was we had a ridiculously high win rate on push maps because I had a lot of emphasis on our ult economy where, hey, if we get the lead, why would we ult?
Mm-hmm.
If we save our ults for the fight where they're going to gain progress. If we always win the fights where they're trying to gain progress, they can't win.
Right.
So we almost every single one of the push maps where we would win, you would like look at the scoreboard and we would almost always have the lower stats.
Right.
But we would be winning because it's like we're winning the fights that matter.
Right.
So I tried to bring that level of like, hey, in situation XYZ, we are going to not do this, and it's applicable across whatever comp we're playing, whatever like situate, like whether we're on attack, whether we're on defense, and trying to find that most like applicable thing for a wide variety of everything. Yes. Obviously, give or take a couple things here and there because there's always nuance with everything.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Any last questions?
No, sir. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, my friend.